Primrose, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I've been looking forward to having a conversation with you. So your background, in my view, you've kind of done the impossible. Could you give an overview of how your career has started and what you do now?
Right. Basically, my career started when I was working in IT, and I was a school leaver. I was leaving Northampton College and went off to work for Barclays. And at that time, I did not imagine I would end up doing accounting or finance or tax or anything like that. I was just, out of college into what I was doing best at the time, which was computer science. So I did that for a couple of years, and then ended up working. I was actually studying Microsoft Systems Administrator course, which is kind of like a 2-year program. So I was on that and worked my way and ended up with Paperlinks Europe, HSPG, National Grid, those kind of places. I kind of went around quite a few companies working in IT, because you'd normally get, like temporary or contract jobs and stuff like that at the time. So yes, so when I was at HSPG, I went off on maternity leave. And during the time I was going away, I remember my old boss saying to me, oh, you could, pick up a double entry, textbook to read, because I really enjoyed supporting the accounting and finance, softwares. It was kind of, Oracle and all these kind of things I genuinely enjoyed. So yeah, during maternity leave, I was reading the book. And before you know it, I'd kind of cracked this double entry thing. I was like, this is kind of, it was not, it's one of those things that I did enjoy IT. I was good at it, but I didn't enjoy it that much. Do you know what I mean? Like that's my career. So yeah, that was, I would say the start of the career was from literally going through that A-level bookkeeping, accounting, textbook. And then came back from maternity leave and realized, actually, I'd rather go to uni, and go and study and see how I get on. So I did my application at De Montfort University. They've got like a business school sort of thing. And off I went to uni. So
was that to do an accountancy degree then?
Yes, so that was to go and do accounting and finance,
okay,
with zero experience in accounting other than having read that book.
That one textbook, yeah, okay.
Yes, and I remember having an interview at the time with my lecturer, who I still speak to this day, and they went away and they came back and said, we're going to give you an unconditional offer because you're now a mature student, and we have no doubt that you've come here and you really want to learn, but you're going to really have to play a lot of catching up, because a lot of people starting this degree have got A-level accounting, and you're coming without that background, because I was doing IT and music, so completely different. Yeah.
And how then did you manage to go from doing the degree to go into practice?
Right. So now that journey is quite interesting. So when I left university, worked in industry, worked for a logistic company, ended up being called by a lady that knew me when I was much younger from an agency in Northampton, and said, oh, there's a job at LGSS. At the time, the local government shared service. Went over there, did some work. During my time there, I went from being like a technical, like an accounting technician sort of thing, to being an assistant accountant. And I really enjoyed my time there. And I went from doing capital budgets, accounting, because you're fresh out of university, you're pumped with so much knowledge, so much information. And the reality is you probably only use 10 to 25% of it. And I was so eager to retain everything I'd learned. So every time I'd learn something, I'd want to know, well, what else can I do? So I went from budgeting and finance, I moved over to tax and treasury, I went to income a bit. So I was trying to, create the variety. So when I left LGSS, I decided public sector is not my thing, because I'd done it and I realized I'm missing corporation tax, I'm missing profit, and all the other, things I'd learned about, because at that point I'd started doing my ACCA papers and I was doing them by myself. So I went back to De Montfort University. They were doing back then a program where you can do the first ACCA papers. And I had nine exemptions, I think, when I left university. So I didn't actually have to sit something like half of the ACCA exams. So it's always good when you're starting out, literally from university, take advantage of whatever exemptions you have. So the modules that you pick when you're at uni will also determine how well you fare in terms of picking ACCA or ICAW or CIMA study routes as you start to develop your professional journey. So when I left, I went off into private sector. I did a bit of temporary work with some companies. And then whilst I was working for one company, we had auditors over from one of the big four. And I had to work very closely with these auditors. And, sometimes when auditors come in, they very much, it's like having the police around, you know what I mean? They go around, they check everything. And, everybody in the business is shaking in their boots and, and I was more intrigued by what they were doing. I mean, I didn't want to do auditing, that's for sure, because I found auditing a bit of a challenge. So I thought, okay, whatever they need, I'm here, and we're gonna. It was a group, and I was basically an interim group accountant at that point. So they came in, they asked questions, we had lots of journals and things to adjust, and I worked very closely with them. They actually ended up signing off one of my ACCA performance objectives because they were so happy with how the job had gone on during that whole audit, and it was a demerger going on, so there was quite a lot of work. So at that point, I also met a tax consultancy that was coming in to do some specific work. We went to a meeting with them and discussed, the various tax issues the business had. And they then asked me and said, so if you're in an interim role here, are you going to be permanent? Are you, what's kind of your next move? Even the lot that had signed me off had said, if you ever leave here, just apply and see if you can come over as a trainee and maybe join auditing or tax. There was a really awesome bunch. I ended up, when I left that role and they'd found a permanent finance manager to look after the group, I actually went and did some subcontracting with one of the tax firms. So the subcontracting started off with, just 20, 30 hours a week, and it was going really well. So I learned and picked up a lot. So
you must have left quite an impression when you were having a conversation with them.
I'm pretty sure. But this is the thing. I don't think I've done anything that is too unique or impossible. And why I say that is because how you present yourself and how you, think of yourself as a product. You want somebody to give you the role. You can't take a product in a shabby way and just put it on the store shelf and think anyone's going to buy it. I'm not saying oversell yourself, but I'm saying know your worth and go after it and actually work hard to walk the walk and talk the talk, so that when you're out there, you can put your hand up when you don't know something. You can also put your hand up when you're like, yeah, I know this, I've got it covered. So I think there was a bit of confidence in it that they were able to see that actually, if you teach this person anything, they'll just run with it. And quite a lot of candidates end up being scared. You're in a job, you just want to be good and just do what you need to do. But sometimes thinking outside the box and giving your opinion can go a long way, because those characteristics matter.
Absolutely. I think your enthusiasm as well sort of really helps it along as well. I
think you don't want to do a degree and not be enthusiastic about it. So definitely, if you've come out of uni with a particular qualification, you definitely have to be passionate about getting somewhere, because you don't get all these tax writers, the presidents of all these regulatory bodies. They started somewhere. They worked hard. They enjoyed it. Yeah,
that's a fair point. I mean, what challenges did you face though, going from working in the public sector in accounts to then suddenly working for a tax consultancy? Because they are
the night shifts I was doing, Ed. Basically, I would be like, okay, so you're at work and you get given, say, a personal tax return. You look at all the things you know from a theoretical point of view, and then meets the practical now. You've got software issues, you've got softwares to learn, processes to understand. HMRC, I think this is one thing we're so lucky to have in the UK, because HMRC's website is a wealth of knowledge. So, I'd be on there, I'd look at tax rates, allowances, make it your business, treat it like a business. You've been given a task to do, go out of your way to find out as much as you can about it to bridge the gap. because obviously having done private sector, I was introduced to doing accounts. And then public sector, you're seeing statements of income and statements of financial position and what have you, but you're not exposed to tax, you're not exposed to personal tax, you're not exposed to capital gains tax. However, when you go to university, you're exposed to all of those things. You leave uni ready to do those things. Just because you don't do them doesn't mean you can't. And then over time, you lose the knowledge. So that is the thing I identified very early on. And one of the reasons why I thought, nope, I'm going to jump around until I figure out what I'm good at. And if I have to do everything that is out there, you know, because people want to stay in a role and work their way up. There's nothing wrong with working your way sideways. Not just, do you get what I mean?
Yeah,
go
absolutely.
out and do different things. Because I remember I had an interview once with a Big Four, and it was such a lovely interview down in Luton, and we agreed that it wasn't the right role for me, like both ways. I think I remember telling you about this. It was about 2-3 years back. Basically, they had looked at me and said, your CV is quite powerful in that you've got such varied tax knowledge. However, this role is for you to come into corporation tax. So you've got, you know, we're going to have to spend another 7-8 grand, you know, to get you up to par in corporation tax. But to have someone with a mixture of tax at the level, you understand, they had questions for me to test my knowledge. You know, there's nothing like you just say it and your CV looks like it. I was actually answering proper tax questions. What would you do in this situation? You know, how would you deal with, you know, connected parties and R&D claimant, you know, those kind of things that you have to know what you're talking about.
It's so broad as well, isn't it? You know.
Exactly. So at that point, I quickly realized that I think I don't really like accounting that much. I like tax. So the first thing in being able to carve out a path for yourself is knowing exactly where your strengths are and what you actually like. And if you like something that is not a strength, then you need to work on it.
What I really love about your background is that you never had tax as an end goal. It's just something that's developed as you've gone along, because you've gone, oh, I like that. I'll learn more about it. I'll push myself towards that. But how have you made sure that you've taken advantage of all the opportunities that presented themselves?
Okay, so one of the things I started doing towards the end of my ACCA exams, and at that time I was working in Cambridge in a tax firm, and I started to watch a lot of webinars, keeping up to date. And I remember there was one webinar, and it was about compliance and digitization and, you know, meet where is technology taking us, meet tax and automation and what have you. I listened to that webinar possibly every week for a couple of months, because at that point I realized there is a shift in the market. And suddenly I'm remembering, hang on, didn't we do modules at uni about change? And, you know, and then you start to ask yourself questions like, actually, it's not enough just to be in a job and just to be happy with your salary and you're going to, you know, probably retire there. You have to research and know what's happening. Remember, your product can get superseded. If we come back to our analogy of a product, right? Someone else can bring a better looking product, better packaging, more sustainable packaging, you name it. You know, they can create a plant-based version of whatever chemical you're selling, right? So, you know, you've got to see what's happening. So I think I started paying attention to what's happening in the market, just like you would if you're selling a product. So at that point, I realized there's a lot of tax advisory. There's a drive for tax advisory. So as much as I was enjoying tax, I thought, actually, because this is something I'm enjoying, let me keep at it. So webinars, I signed up to Mercia, do some really good CPD stuff. And I just was doing all of this to keep myself, you know, up to speed with what is going on. So, you know, you've got to treat your career like a case study.
I love that. It's it really is down to yourself to sort of push yourself forward, really, isn't it? I mean, I suppose we've covered a fair bit of this, but lastly, what advice would you give to somebody looking to move into tax?
I would say, I don't know who else says this out there, but I do. Okay, so
go on then. What we got?
you need, I think the way I've seen it play out now
Yeah.
You can't be, and don't judge me on this. This is just little Prim's opinion here,
Go on then.
For you to be really good in tax, you have to really understand tax issues. And for you to understand tax issues, you have to at least be able to understand what a set of accounts looks like.
Yeah.
And I get it that people come out of uni and they go straight into tax courses and stuff like that. But lo and behold, when you start looking around and you look at all the professional bodies, or the CIOT, which is obviously a body that I am with and love, and I learn a lot from it. I'm also in my committee in the East Midlands. It's brilliant. However, all of the people that are in there, majority of them are either, ACA, CTA, ACCA, CTA, whatever you have, CTA. So I feel like in order for you to carve out a path into tax, you've got to understand the position of a set of accounts before you come in to do all your tax adjustments. And I think that is actually important. And if you dig a little bit deeper, which obviously is not really necessary for this, a lot of times you get a bit of spillover of things that, follow the accounting treatment. If you really read your tax, you'll know that there's some kind of expectation for you to know what's going on with accounts, for you to know what to do with the tax side of it. But obviously this depends on whether you venture into compliance or advisory. Are you really doing, or you're more advising? Whereas I'm doing accounting, I'm doing tax advisory, I'm doing tax compliance, and I enjoy that mixture. So, you can never feel like you're falling short of anything. And I think mixed tax is a future potential thing, because it's good to have somebody that understands how different taxes relate to each other, as well as how different financial standards and stuff have particular implications for tax. And I think that's important. So definitely, if you're looking to move into tax, do lots of reading. I think the thing with tax that's very different is, unlike accounting, where accounting standards, IFRS 5 and whatever, IAS 12 and, IS, whatever, those things. And when they change, they've changed. With tax, you've got HMRC cases, you've got things going on, you've got a Finance Act, a new one every year. So it's actually a lot more involving and constant, and I quite like that. So if you like tax, you will like reading.
Nothing stays still in tax, does it? There's always changes. There's always, okay, we can do this now, but we can't do it now. It's
exactly. Oh, this has got to wait until next April, and then next year it's like, oh, we've postponed it. So you're constantly, looking at things. But one thing I'm enjoying lately is tax planning.
Okay.
It's actually, I think it's one of the most rewarding things about tax, when you're able to help a client plan their tax, whereas in a typical role, you would kind of deal with the client after they've already done whatever they've done. So you're just calculating tax liabilities, but to have the opportunities now and then to sit with the client and say to them, okay, if you do it this way, you're going to minimize tax. And that, I think that is golden.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's those sort of things that, when you sit in front of a company and go, oh, so I've done your statutory accounts, I go, oh, thank you very much. But, when you turn around and go, I think I can save you some tax on here, that's when you really get their interest, really get their interest.
Exactly. I know we can't all get into tax, but I'd certainly say whether you're and the nice thing about tax, I think we've discussed this as well in our chats in the past. With tax, you can be both industry and practice.
Yes.
Without, do you know what I mean? Without it being as challenging as it might be when you're used to having one client, your employer in industry, and you want to jump over into practice where you now have 160 clients in your portfolio. You're going to have, and I think one of the things that helped me a lot was, before getting to the end goal of the tax, I'd experienced public sector, private sector, logistics, childcare, healthcare, and when you've done that, you give me any portfolio. It's business as usual.
It's as I kind of get to the end of this conversation, it's the experience that you build up throughout your life and through other through other aspects of your career that actually helps with the end goal of working within practice and tax as well. Absolutely. Oh, Primrose, thank you so much again for agreeing to do this.
You are welcome. You are welcome. Anything, Ed. I think it's so important. I'm so glad you did this because a lot of candidates, sometimes we just need to have these conversations to say, actually, what are people doing?
Yes.
And what's the thing that people are gravitating to? And just personal evaluations on oneself, how you're moving and what you could change. And if anything, somebody's picked up from this, I need to do a bit more reading, as I'm
That's,
going along.
yeah, that's what I hope. I hope somebody will be sort of listening into this and go, right, okay, this is how I can help build my career. But again, thank you so much again. You take
You're
care.
welcome, Ed. Thank you very much. All right, take care. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right,
Bye.
bye.